Welcome back to this live the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. With me, eventually, I have only Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos. Well, Professor Aworawo, thank you very much for showing up, for making it a date. Well, as usual, I've had two guests on the program. Dr. Ibanjo is talking about the power system and how, in the last 24 hours we had power generation, power distribution in Nigeria dropping to 70 megawatts. And he says generation is not the problem. It's the other end of the value chain that is the problem. And we've also had Professor Adele Jinadu, whom I'm sure you know very well, foremost political scientist, talking about the election in the United Kingdom and also the ECOWAS meeting that was held today, where we were told that President Tinubu has been retained as chair of ECOWAS for an additional year. Your take on those two issues first.
I would like to start with the domestic front, that is the power crisis. I'm not sure I will be wrong if I use the word power crisis, because we know how critical power is to national development, which is why different countries of the world pay a lot of attention to it, because they know the link between steady power and economic development. Unfortunately, the Nigerian experience has not been pleasant. If we are even to just take it from since 1999, we've had this flip-flop. Incidentally, in the early 2000s, so much attention was paid to it under the Obasanjo government, and a whole lot of resources were, committed to it. Unfortunately, not much improvement has taken place. We see hover around 7,000 megawatts or less, sometimes as low as 5,000, 4,000 megawatts. In fact, what is available for Nigerians is just about 4,000 plus megawatts. What that also means is that since President Obasanjo left in 2007, what has been added is not extensive. Meanwhile, economic activities continue to expand, population continue to expand, and which has raised the question, what is the problem with Nigeria's power sector? And the simple answer is that the problem with Nigeria's power sector is about the same as the problem with Nigeria itself. What goes on in the power sector is a microcosm of what goes on in the wider Nigerian environment. And the problems that the sector has had are also the same problems that have, plagued Nigeria as a whole. President Obasanjo appointed Chief Bola Ige at some point in the hope that his strictness, his forthrightness, his commitment will help to transform the sector. But that never happened. Under the Buhari government, Mr. Fashola was appointed, Fashola's son was appointed in the hope that, the Fashola magic that took place in Lagos, will help transform the power sector. That also never happened. And so that leaves one with the conclusion that there's something fundamental about the sector that has not been addressed. And just like, our guest said, it is systemic. It is a reflection of the way we have conducted our affairs. There's a whole lot of corruption there. There's a whole lot of incompetence, people not knowing the right thing to do and all. Which is why, if you look at the time that Professor Bafun-Naji was, Minister of Power, things tended to improve. And it appeared that would have been sustained, and by now, the story would have been different. Because one, an expert in the field; two, someone is committed; three, someone who was forthright. Unfortunately, there were some elements in the Nigerian system who didn't like the way it would go. At that time, unfortunately for us, coincided with when he was, when they were privatizing. And there were some elements who thought that they were left out of the privatization and all that. And they just looked for some things and went to President Jonathan, and he was removed. They brought Professor Chinedu Nebo, who didn't do as well as Naji did. And since then, it has been just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, with no significant improvement. And so a few days ago, the president said that the Nigerian power sector is embarrassing. They now even have embarrassed us more with the collapse of national grid at 3:10 p.m. yesterday, which is the fourth in 2024. So the presidency needs to really do something beyond the ordinary to be able to, really transform the sector. It doesn't seem that it's rocket science, because South Africa, Egypt, in the past few years that we are talking grammar, they've added 10,000 megawatts to their, national grid, which means that all we have had since independence, since 60-something years, these countries are able to do in just a couple of years, 3-5 years. So the fundamentals have to be addressed. A total overhaul, and of course, the appointment of someone who actually knows the field is required for the power sector to be transformed and then stabilized. We hope the presidency, we hope this collapse, there will be a silver lining in the cloud. And that silver lining is that it galvanizes government to do things differently, to be able to really solve the problem of power in the country. British election, yes, very interesting. It was a long time coming. It was clear that Labour was going to win, and
2 months.
Yes.
6 weeks of
Yes.
campaign.
A resounding victory. Sunak, Sunak took a risk because he thought that this was the best time to call the election. Things might go worse. The economy has improved slightly. They thought also that they were making some progress on the immigration crisis and all that, and that this would be the best time to call the election and have some chance of, winning. But of course, we've seen the result.
Did well.
Yes.
Turning around.
Yes.
Inflation was going down.
Yeah, exactly.
The job market was cooling.
Yeah, exactly. And, so as soon as calculated and thought that, this was the best time before things begin to go worse again. Let's try and see whether that would persuade the British to vote the Conservative. But the damage had been done long ago, and people were just waiting for election to come to express themselves. And the victory is resounding. Now, there are 3 core areas I want to comment on as far as the British elections, UK elections are concerned. The first is the lessons for us to learn from it. We saw how seamless, peaceful, elections don't have to be a war. They are the way they are in Nigeria. And it speaks to what I've also always said about what Nigeria needs to do, to improve. The biggest problem of Nigeria are Nigerians themselves. And there is the need for ethical renaissance among Nigerians for Nigeria to be able to, do well. We can do everything, but if we continue to do things the way we do them now, things will not improve. Elections don't have to be war, and we've seen the way it took place in the UK. And to just even comment on, to even go a bit to the African environment. South Africa had election just a couple of weeks ago. The electronic system, the technology failed. They used manual, and the manual worked because people didn't see it as war. So that when the problem was fixed, the problem was fixed, and people were told to revert to it. They said, no, let's just continue with the manual thing since it was seamless. So here we talk about technology. Yes, it will improve it, but who we are, our attitude, our approach is also very critical. So that's the one point. The second is, how does it affect us? Well, there are a large number of Nigerians in the UK. Many of them will be happy because Sunak and the Conservatives were like anti-immigrant, as you could see from the policy of, those who come to the UK for care, they will no longer be allowed to bring their families there. Those who come to the UK to school, a whole lot of things have been changed. They study, work, program 2 years after your program ends and all that. They were also looking for a way to, see how that will be cancelled. And students who go there that used to bring their dependents, they say no more, and all of that. In fact, the information reaching us says that even in India, there is a section of the Indian world that is rejoicing because those policies also affected Indians who come to, and they consume a very large number, who come to the UK to school. That, Sunak, thanks so very much, you've done your job, just go. Because they expect a better deal under Labour. So how it affects us is important. And from the comments we have had Starmer make, that's the new Prime Minister, he seems committed to, he seems empathetic to, the African condition, Nigerian condition especially. And let's hope that what he did when he was not Prime Minister, he will continue in the same routine and will benefit from it moving forward. And then finally, on the ECOWAS, the meeting that just held in Abuja, 65th, heads of state meeting. It's good. Continuity, yes. President Bola Tinubu has tried. He almost got it wrong initially. Diplomacy is not conducted abrasively. He quickly realized that, and speaking with particular reference to the Niger coup and the way ECOWAS wanted to approach it. But thankfully, reason prevailed, and there's some stability now. But ECOWAS is facing a great deal of crisis arising from those countries, Mali, Niger, Guinea, Burkina Faso, those countries that are trying to pull out, that have pulled out actually, and are even trying to form a league, and even launch a currency of their own. It's very disturbing. ECOWAS is facing crisis, but we hope that reason will prevail at some point. They'll be able to persuade them back, and it's like that for international organizations. The ability to enforce decisions is a problem, from the UN to the league before it and several others. But ECOWAS needs to tread carefully, needs to be persuasive too, so that these other countries that have pulled out, at some point they'll persuade them to come back, and ECOWAS can continue in the same routine to fulfill its objectives.
ECOWAS will be 50 next year, and we'll have plenty of time to assess the objectives of ECOWAS and the extent to which that regional body has been able to achieve those objectives. But let's take another subject. The Nigerian government has issued a flood warning as heavy rains began to gain intensity in July, and the government has issued a red alert for 18 out of the 36 states of the Federation and Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation, Professor Joseph Ustav, alongside Minister of State, Bello Goronyo, highlighted the states vulnerable to flooding during a media briefing in Abuja on Thursday. They noted ongoing discussions with Cameroon's Lagdo Dam regarding water releases and assured the public of continuous monitoring. The ministry urges residents living near water bodies and riverbanks to evacuate promptly to prevent potential disasters.
Okanji and Jeba dams of River Niger are still impounding water into their reservoirs. Shiroro Dam or River Kaduna is equally impounding water. There is no release of water yet from any of the dams within and outside Nigeria. At this point, it is important to state that river flooding is expected beginning from this month, July 2024. The states that are likely to be impacted within this, as predicted, are Akwa Ibom, Anambra, Adamawa, Benue, Bayelsa, Cross River, Delta, Jigawa, Edo, Kogi, Kebbi, Kaduna, Niger, Nasarawa, Ondo, Ogun, Rivers, Taraba, and the FCT. The Lagdo Dam operators have informed us that they are currently filling the dam for hydropower generation. However, we will keep monitoring the development on this flank and keep close tab on other monitoring stations as we are approaching the critical months. It is in light of the above that the Federal Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation wishes to urge the states and the general public to take necessary measures to prevent ugly flooding menace of the past years.
Okay, the minister there giving us an explanation. NIMET, the Nigeria Meteorological Agency, also said that there will be heavy rainfall. He said from Wednesday to Friday, but perhaps beyond that point. But we hear this every year. The states will be flooded, water will be released from the Lagdo Dam, just a yearly ritual. And government has not been able to do anything about it. Why are we like this? Next year, we will face exactly the same situation. In Lagos this week, people were left counting losses as a result of flooding due to heavy torrential rainfall. So why are we like this? It happens every year. I can assure you. Let me use that notorious phrase. I assure you that next year we'll be at the same place. What is wrong with us?
Well, it doesn't seem that the flood thing, there will be a permanent solution. There is no cure. You can only be managed. And attempt to manage it would reduce the damage it does, the extent of the flooding and all. But it doesn't seem that it's something that has a cure, so to speak. I say this because there are states, for instance, that are below sea level. Lagos, for instance, there's nothing the government will do that will make flooding not happen. But there are a lot that government will do to reduce the flooding, and of course, by implication, also reduce the damage that the flooding, will do. Well, the Lagos government, to be fair, has tried to prepare. The minister of, the commissioner in charge, Tokunbo Wahab, has been all over the place, demolishing structures that are blocking waterways and all that, the way they used to do in Ibadan in those days when Ogunkwa flooding takes place, and then they would demolish to clear way for the water to flow. A whole lot of that has been done in the past few months, which to my mind actually reduced the extent of this flood and the damage it has done. If they had just thrown their hands and did nothing, I'm sure the flow would have been worse than what we have had. But of course, a whole lot more needs to be done. For instance, in the course of the week, as it was raining, we had some families throwing their debts into the water, which will further complicate, the condition, the process. So the government needs to do more. They need to continue to ensure that canals are cleared, anything blocking water is freed. All of those measures that need to be taken, so that when flooding takes place, or when the rains fall, they'll be able to move freely, and the flooding, when it occurs, will not be as intense as what we have had. And that is like what's across the country. I say that it's something that doesn't have a cure, because the rains will fall, and climate change is making a whole lot of things to also change, to become more intense. I am happy that the government says they are negotiating with the Cameroonian government, because release of water from that dam has been a major factor in how that extreme flooding that will just wipe off, people's livelihood and all. We hope that the discussion will be fruitful, and there will be, if water will be released, will be managed such that it doesn't cause the kind of destruction it has caused in previous years. So all of those measures, if they are put in place...
The Lagos State government,
yes,
to cite a specific example, is saying this is in part because people have built structures blocking drainages, and that more houses will be demolished, and that demolition is the way forward.
Well, it's right. They should just be careful so that people are not, this vindictiveness is not coming. Because I've seen some people say, well, our houses have all the documents and we're not blocking anywhere, and they just came and marked their houses and want to demolish them or have demolished them. They should ensure that the process is fair. If we have, if a house is built, to block where water should pass, I mean, there's no way the government won't do something. The government will be irresponsible not to do something. So demolishing all of those houses, blocking right of way of water and all, is just the right thing to do. Like I said before,
some people say these houses belong to Igbos, people who voted obedient for Peter Obi in the last election, and that is political.
I don't think so. And I made a comment. I made an addendum to my initial comment to say that they should ensure that the process is fair. Many of the houses demolished are not houses of people. We've seen houses of people from Delta, houses of people from Ogun State, from Lagos that have also been demolished. A whole lot since this past election, a whole lot has everything that the government does.
People say the obedience are very annoying, and that if they run foul of the law in Lagos, they should be dealt with.
No, that is not the way around it. If you come to demolish my house when I have my papers, I have not blocked any right of way, of course I will go to court and I will get compensation. If anybody thinks that his house has been demolished because he's obedient or because he doesn't support the APC government, he should go to court. This street talk doesn't fetch anything, it doesn't go anywhere. Because we know of people who are not from the East, who are also APC members whose houses have been demolished. So if anybody thinks that he's an obedient supporter and his house is being demolished or has been demolished on account of that, which is victimization, the person should go to court. We will be eager to support such move. But all of this talk on the social media and on the street without concrete evidence and all that, it doesn't go. We just hear them, we just pass them on. But of course, the government should be careful to ensure that nobody is victimized on account of his political belief and support. But of course, if somebody builds a house blocking the right of way of water and he says because it's from the East, nobody should touch him, the government will be irresponsible not to take action. So the government too should not be influenced or by such comments. Just go ahead and do what is right and ensure that it does it fairly.
Okay, Professor Aworawo, good to have you on the program. But at this point, let's take a short break, and then when we return, the program will continue. We'll be right back. The federal government, welcome back to This is Live, the Sunday Talk Show, and our guest here, the panelist, is Professor David Aworawo of the University of Lagos. Now, let's take another topic. The federal government has maintained that the recently signed Samoa Agreement is strictly for the economic development of the country, contrary to widespread claims that it contains provisions for same-sex marriage. Speaking in defense of the agreement, Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Atiku Bagudu, said there is nowhere in the document where same-sex marriage is mentioned. According to the minister's spokesperson, Bolaji Adebiyi, what Bagudu signed was about a $150 billion trade component. Earlier, on Thursday, Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, clarified that the federal government ensured that the agreement did not contravene the 1999 Constitution as amended and other extant laws. He said there's an existing law in Nigeria that criminalizes same-sex relationships. Well, that's what the federal government has said. I think even yesterday, the federal government made it clear that Daily Trust, the paper that carried the story, will have to answer questions because the federal government will go to the ombudsman of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria. Now, there have been many controversies around this subject, with people alleging that those who are complaining, they don't read the law, Article 9, Sub 2, as it were. And then, of course, a columnist, Sonny ECOWAS, quoted other sections of that law, but other people say they've looked at it and it is not true. But what is more important is that Nigeria has a law. The Same-Sex Prohibition Act of 2014 and the Matrimonial Causes Act of Nigeria, which recognizes a relationship constituting marriage or union to be a relationship between a man and a woman, not a relationship between a man and man, brotherhood, they call it, or between a woman and a woman, sisterhood, they call it. But we have this controversy, and I said a few days ago, on the same platform, Arise News, there is a storm in a teacup. But what do you say to all of this? Because it's within the province of international agreements and covenants, international relations, and Nigeria's sovereignty.
Well, I don't think it's a storm in a teacup if indeed there are clauses in the agreement that provides for acceptance of same-sex marriage in it. But what those who have, carefully looked at the agreement have said, and for what we also have, what we have seen, we hope there are not different versions, reveals that there is no such provision in the agreement. Daily Trust itself has come to, clarify that it erred in stating that the agreement contained that clause for acceptance of same-sex marriage, that the initial draft, the EU requested that that provision be there, but people said no, you can't put that as a condition, and that it was taken out. So in the agreement, at least the processes that led to the signing of the agreement, we do not know. Those details we don't have. But the details that we have has to do with the agreement itself. And the agreement itself, from what we have, and from what the Trust itself has even stated, that clause, requiring Nigeria to accept same-sex marriage is not there. And so to that extent, yes, I agree with you, storm in the teacup. But if it were there, it won't be a storm in the teacup, because just as also you have pointed out, it will go against the 2014 anti-gay law, which prescribed, I think, 14 years for anybody who is carrying on as same-sex relationship or whatever. So that clarifies it. And, what comes out of it is that moving forward, because over the years we have had countries sign agreements only to come and regret that, if they scrutinize carefully, they wouldn't have accepted this clause, that clause, and they were looking for a way to renounce it. Thankfully, that clause is not in the Samoa agreement, and that means that there is nothing in that agreement that contravenes Nigerian law, which is in order. Some have argued that the people want to give grants, they give loan, we give whatever. There are always conditionalities attached to it. You either accept or reject. These things are always negotiated in international diplomacy. And I think that is what took place, and that the final agreement we have, which has been signed, hasn't any clause that requires Nigeria to accept same-sex marriage. And one final thing I also say about that is that the West should be careful about this cultural imperialism. If they accept same-sex, they should allow those who do not accept it to be. I recall when Obama was president, one of the things that almost rubbished his tours across Africa was this: before he would make 3 comments, he would say same-sex. I recall when he went to Kenya, there was almost altercation between him and Uhuru Kenyatta over same-sex. They should just let people... Look, people have their culture, they have their culture, other people have their cultures. Everybody cannot be in the same box, into the same group. They have their own, others have their own. They should allow people be. And thankfully, as I said, the Samoa agreement does not have any such clause, at least from what we have. And so Nigeria can go ahead.
Okay, I hear you very well, Prof. But what, the Nigerian officials, Minister of Budget Planning, Minister of Information, spokespersons to the President, what they have said very clearly that this does not in any way detract from the laws of Nigeria or from the sovereignty of Nigeria, and that if anything, Nigeria stands to benefit from the Samoa Agreement. And the Samoa Agreement, for the benefit of people listening to us, is, an agreement reached with the EU, the European Union, by the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States on a number of issues which are development issues, climate change, agriculture, healthcare, and it's to facilitate access to funding support. But in Nigeria, what has been the issue is the Article 9 sub 2. But if you look at the document, the final document that Nigeria has acceded to, there's nothing about gay rights there. But as you said, Nigerian laws do not support gay rights. Matrimonial Causes Act says it's only a man that can marry a woman, not the other way around, against the order of nature. And that is reinforced by the Same-Sex Prohibition Act of 2014. Well, we take one more topic quickly as we begin to wrap up. The Federal High Court in Abuja has invalidated the People's Democratic Party primary election that produced Asuwa Ighodalo as the party's candidate in the forthcoming governorship election in Edo State. The judge, Inyanga held that PDP's primary held on February 22 failed to comply with the provisions of the Electoral Act 2022 and the party's constitution. ECOWAS, who said that the exhibit tendered by the party lacked evidence, held that the ad hoc delegates, through the exhibits tendered, were able to establish their case against the defendants. The judge faulted the electoral body, INEC, which didn't file any process during the hearing of the matter, insisting its input would have made it easy to address the matter. 3 aggrieved ad hoc delegates, led by Kevin Mohammed, on behalf of the 378 others, have sued the Independent National Electoral Commission, the PDP, its national secretary, and the vice chairman, South, as first to fourth defendants, respectively. Well, very briefly, Professor Aworawo, the certified true copy of the judgment that is now in the public domain does not say categorically that the election, the choice of Asuwa Ighodalo has been invalidated. And it is on the basis of that that the party in Edo State has said, look, what has been decided by the court of Justice Inyanga is really of no moment. Second, issues have also been raised about whether the court can inquire into the internal processes of the political party in terms of the primaries choosing a candidate. The third leg of it is that whatever the veracity of the claims are, PDP Edo State and Asuwa Ighodalo, they both still have the right to go to the Court of Appeal to seek further clarification.
Yes, the last point you've just made, to my mind, is the most crucial. Because just like you have in Rivers, a judge will make pronouncements and then you have conflicting interpretations of the judgment. This side will say, oh, we won, it is in our favor. The other side will say, oh, yes, it's in our favor. And so sometimes you'll be wondering, is it not this same judgment that all of us can read? That this group is interpreting this way and the other group is interpreting the other way. So the best thing to do is for PDP should not assume that, the judgment does not invalidate Ighodalo's candidacy. We'll just move ahead as if nothing has happened. They may just discover that they go into an election. After the election, it will seem that they didn't have a candidate. So they need to go to the Court of Appeal so that a clarity of all that has taken place, the pronouncements will be made that will clarify all of it. Because on the one hand, APC is rejoicing. On the other, a part of PDP that feels that it was left out in the primaries is also rejoicing. And then the governor, Ighodalo, and the other group are also rejoicing from the same judgment. So they need to go to appeal courts. And first, we need clearer interpretation. It will also enrich the Nigerian legal system. We need to let there be pronouncements regarding the issues on which judges can make pronouncements on. Because these primary things, pre-election matter is not is within the political party to handle. Sometimes when somebody else brings issues, they say, no, you don't have local standard, you're not a member of the, there are things like that. So let the appeal court make pronouncements so that there can be clarity on the issue. It is not in the interest of the PDP that all that is happening. But like I've said, elections are not supposed to be war. The way these things are taken, I don't know, be Lagos, I don't this, there's so much tension, as if the world is about to come to an end. The tension should go down. It should not be. It's because the payoff, the rewards are so high, and everybody wants to die to be there. They should take it easy. They should tread carefully. Go to appeal court, get a clearer pronouncement, and then they can take it from there. For now, I do not think it's a huru for Edo PDP.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Aworawo. We told you earlier that President Bola Tinubu has been re-elected for his second term as the chairman of the Economic Community of West African States, thus extending his leadership of the regional bloc. Tinubu, who took office in May 2023, was reaffirmed during the 65th ordinary session of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government. The session, convened at the Presidential Villa in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. Leaders from West African nations have strongly opposed the withdrawal of Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, nations currently under military rule from the ECOWAS bloc. This consensus emerged during the ECOWAS summit in Abuja. The military regimes of these countries recently formed a new alliance and severe ties with ECOWAS. The summit was convened following appeals from several West African leaders to resume dialogue with the coup-affected Sahel countries, despite ECOWAS lifting sanctions on Niger in February to facilitate reconciliation efforts. Progress has been limited. Congratulations to the President of Nigeria, re-elected as chairman of ECOWAS for the next 1 year. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati from our entire team here in Lagos. It's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.